If you have two shoes, please sell one and buy a sword. If you have two trousers, please sell one and buy a sword. Because now it is time for revolution. And this revolution is no longer on streets. This revolution is not about burning cars. This revolution is about building cars and selling them. Literally, this revolution is in the mind. Because if we are not in charge of our mind, then our bodies will be the tools that the oppressor will use to enslave us and to enslave our people. Peace and power, freedom and decolonization to all of you African people from wherever you are. Greetings from the African Continental Unity Party. My name is King Kabbalah, a member of the communication team. Today, I want to just briefly remind you that Africa is at war. As we're speaking right now, Africa is at war of extermination. When you look around the continent today, you see that there are conflicts everywhere. There are hundreds, there are dozens being killed in the Democratic Republic of the Congo every day, right? When we look in Central Africa, we see the same situation. When we look in Somalia, we see the same situation. There's a war. When we look in Ethiopia, we see the same situation. There's a war. Even though there's currently a kind of a peace, we don't know what happens tomorrow because it looks like the war is a continuous business for that country. Whether we look in Burkina Faso, whether we look in Mali, whether we look in Nigeria, whether we look in, wherever you try to look, whether we look in Libya, Africa is at war. Mozambique, there's a war. And it's interesting that within this conflict of war, most of African people are looking for peace, which is a very good thing. And some leaders are talking about peace, trying to do everything they are doing to look for peace. And if indeed it is a good thing, because all of us need peace more than anything else in life. But there are ways through which people can obviously proceed in acquiring their peace. And we need to understand that these ways, actually there are two ways that I know of that one can proceed or one can go through in search for the peace that he or she may want in life. And the way that most of African leaders have apparently chosen for this agenda of peace which they have looks for me less sustainable. It's kind of a peace whereby you don't have trouble, but you are in trouble. A peace whereby you try by all means to content yourself with your situation or to be happy but suffering. As I said, there are two ways of getting peace. When you are attacked, when you are under attack, right? When you are under siege, you, of course, as I said, human being, naturally, we want to be at peace. Now, there are two ways when you are attacked to secure your peace. One is to surrender to the people who attack you and give them what they want. And then you will be at peace. Now, if what they want is your liberty, right? You give them your liberty and you get your peace. That means you have to serve them. You have to be their servants. You have to be their slave, right? You have to be under their hegemony for you to be at peace. And that's what I'm saying. That is a peace whereby you have to make yourself comfortable with your conditions. In other words, you have to be happy with your suffering. That is one dimension or one level of one side of peace, or one way of securing your peace. Now, the other way of securing your peace when you are under attack is to build yourself with all the necessary weapons that will make your enemy afraid of trying to attack you anymore. Should I say that again? The other methods of you acquiring your peace is to build yourself with all the necessary weapons or tools that will undermine the survival, the strength of your enemy, so that he cannot even try to attack you anymore. And to have that, in a nutshell, it means to have the power that will terrify your enemy. As Marcus Garvey said, that the modern man has deviated so that we can convince him. The modern man has deviated so that we can no longer convince him with moral truth alone, but only with that which is powerful, and that is the implement of destruction. You see, when you look in the world today, the world is divided in powerful countries among powerful countries versus powerless countries. And when we talk about power, in the context of today's reality, when we say powerful country or countries, it doesn't mean that those countries have some people with special skills, with special wisdom, with special ability more than other human beings. No, all human beings are equal in capacity of thinking and creating whatever they want or they can imagine necessary for themselves. However, those called superpower countries are powerful countries simply on one single dimension, which is a dominant dimension of the power in the modern context, which is the ability of destruction. I'm going to give you an example. When we say that the US today is a powerful country, when we say France is a powerful country, England is a powerful country, it's not because England is praying to an almighty God that that England has got people that are super intelligent, or England or America is a loving country, that is why it's got is a superpower country, or is loved by the remaining country, that is why it's a superpower country. No, it's simply because these countries, America, England, France, right? You can talk about China, Russia as well. They are powerful because they have the ability to destroy other people, other population. In a nutshell, power in the modern context today, in the current context, is the ability of destruction that one can impose or can inflict on other people. The America is superpower because today we know that if America decides to attack South Africa, for example, it will be a chaos all over the country within 24 hours. If America tries to attack Congo, Nigeria, any African country, it will be total destruction, because these small colonial enclosures that we have embraced as countries, they don't have the same means of destruction as America has. Therefore, power today is the ability of destruction that one possesses above others. So, coming back to our point of peace. If we want peace in Africa, as we are at war right now, we should be longing for power. And this power will be more into us developing some equipment, some tools of destruction that will terrify the people who have always wanted to destroy us as African people. That is why today, North Korea, even though it is called poor country according to Western propaganda, it is a bad country, dictatorship and poor, and they call it any names which come to their mind, but they are unable to go and impose their democracy and end the dictatorship in that country. You know why? Because that country possesses nuclear weapon. Because the danger of nuclear weapon is that if you attack me and I retaliate, we alienate each other automatically. And these countries, they are very much afraid of alienation. Mostly, that is the language which they understand, the language of power, which can be resumed at the destructive capacity. So, trying to secure peace, what we need to do as African people is to come up with a strategy of building continental military strategy or continental weapons of mass destruction, or in this context, weapon of persuasion. That's the only way. Unfortunately, this debate is not popular among African scholars and African thinkers, but us as young Africans, we look at the future. We look at the reality and we think about the future. We understand the world in which we live. We are not trying to dream about it. We understand it in its reality. You see, you can have Mahat's principles. You can have whatever spiritual principle that you want in Africa for our development. But until we develop something that speaks to the minds of European people or of Asian people, we're not gonna secure our peace. You just have to remember, we were destroyed with our Mahat's principles. You see, and the reason we were destroyed is because we handed over the role of protection, the role of military to Greeks mercenary in Africa, so that we can concentrate on spiritual values, spiritual principles and stuff like that. And the very same people that we engaged for our protection are the ones who destroyed us, who took us down. That's the history of Africa. And today we need to correct that mistake, because it looks like Africa is 80% religious. We're relying more on religion and neglecting that we need protection, we need employment, we need industry, we need this and all these things that we need in Africa. But in most particular way, in context of today's discussion, we need peace, and we cannot secure that peace by begging Americans to protect us as we did in the past. We cannot secure the peace that we want by thinking that Russian will be our protectors, will be the ones who will defend us against America, because as Arab did to us, they would defend us against the Americans, and they will replace the Americans and become the new oppressors, right? The only way we have to secure peace as African people, as I said, is by building our power base, which is by starting to build implement of destruction, as Marcus Garvey said it. And we must understand this. It was said by Dr. John Henry Clark. Africa is always the richest continent, because Africa has things that many want and they cannot do without, and they have never wanted to pay for. Therefore, they will always find an excuse to invade Africa. So in light of this philosophical and wisdom by Dr. John Henry Clark, we cannot expect that we will be at peace one day by trying to be partners, by trying to be, in collaboration either with America, with Russia, with India, with China. No, they will become our new oppressors. The only way for Africa to secure durable and sustainable peace is to build our global power base by coming up with every strategy possible that will give us the tools that we can call the implement of destruction. In 2016, for example, each and African country spent some money for military budget, and when we bring this money together, it was about 42 to 46 billion US dollars. But when you look around the continent, Africa is weak, defenseless, and sometimes hopeless. As I said, we are at war. Mostly this money was used to buy armed protector vehicles for the head of states. It was used in corruption, or to buy old weapons, old guns from Russia, from America, guns of 1970s, which cannot be competitive today in reality of today's warfare or war context. So we spend that money to buy those things. which are useless. And actually, we have to ask ourselves the question, why do we individually embark in this agenda of buying a lot of guns? Because we are not at war against each other mostly. There's no such story as what is happening in Europe right now, because in Europe is expert actually in war of extermination. They have been waging wars of extermination against each other. So Africa does not have that story. But as we know, the reality and the leadership of Africa was set to make Africa the clients of Western products. So we buy these guns even though there's no need for them at the national level or fake national level that we have inherited from colonialism. However, if we can bring this money together and have it as an African budget for defense of Africa, 42 to 46 billion US dollars is a very good startup for us to build a continental weapon or a continental military system that can kick all the military base of America, of France, of China out of Africa, and for example build strong missiles that can be positioned in every corner of Africa so that it can be activated to defend Africa if need arises. I mean, these are realistic goals. This is not dreams, because sometimes we want to be at peace. We want to be peaceful people, and we don't want to think about this thing or this aspect of things. Unfortunately, that is the real world in which we're living today. And if we are unable to think in this way and to come up with the military solutions, then we are doomed to fail, because the language that the white man listens to is the language of power. When you begin to talk about in the context of power, which I've explained, the power that means the capability or the capacity of distraction, then he listens to you. Then he wants to speak with you. He wants to have a deal with you. He wants to cooperate with you. That is why they wanted to speak to Toussaint Louverture, during the Haitian Revolution, because he had built certain power, a power that was actually competitive to French power, and he overthrew French regime. So they were not trying to speak with him. But as I said, he was unwise. He made a mistake actually to think that these people understand the language of power, which is part of African DNA. He went to France, they locked him down, they killed him in the cold environment. He never saw Haiti again. And that's a reality. So this is the only mentality and mindset of the people we are dealing with, unfortunately. So for every soldier who is at war, his chance of success or failure depends on his capability to adapt himself to his enemy. Should I say that again? Every soldier who is at war, his survival or failure depends on his ability to adapt himself to the strength and capability of his enemy. So we need to understand what we are dealing with and adjust and adapt ourselves to the situation so that we can overcome the situation, because the world of today and the world of tomorrow is not the same world of yesterday, the world of Kemet, the world of Nubia, the world of Ethiopia. It has become completely a different world. Of course, we have to take what we did in the past as a reference to what we have to do in the future. We always have to understand that when we talk about our history, when we talk about the past, it's not just about glorifying the history or what we did in the past or glorifying of the pharaohs and stuff like that. No, it's about preparing the future or making or drawing some kind of references to what we can do better for our future. That is the purpose of history, is to serve us for the future purpose. So this can be done through the a Pan-Africanist agenda, which the ACUP is actually pushing now around the continent, because we call the ACUP the African Continental Unity Party, and our vision is only that one, to re-establish Africa as a global power base. And that power, I've already explained it, but it is not limited only to that. But we talk about scientific power. We also talk about, political power, economic power, and also military power. Because you need to understand one thing, very important. We are talking about economy in Africa. Economy is very good in Africa. We want economy, but for you to be able to build a strong economy, you need to be able to secure that economy as well. Can you think about somebody who goes and buy a Lamborghini, but he doesn't have a secure house? He doesn't have a garage where he will park his Lamborghini. Then he is forced to leave it parked on streets. Do you know what happens? Next morning, he comes and finds it stolen. And that's the situation today. We talk about economic. We had recently 2018 the so-called African Continental Free Trade, which is good, economic initiative, right? We want our economy to develop, but do we have the means to protect that economy? Because you must always understand that the economic development of Africa is European demise, economically speaking. So they will want to stop that, as they did stop Muammar Gaddafi. So what means do we have to protect our economy, to protect our copper, to protect our diamonds, our gold, our platinums? They are plundered as we're speaking right now. We cannot do that with the Mahat alone. We cannot do that with good speech alone. We cannot do that by protesting on the streets. No. We will have to do that by building our own weapons of persuasion or of distraction if needs be. Because that's the context of today's world. So let us build this agenda, continental agenda, which is the African Continental Unity Party, because it's only through this kind of organization that we'll be able to materialize other agendas that we may have for the protection, for the development and emancipation of Africa. If you have liked this presentation, I plead with you to kindly like the video and subscribe to help our channel to grow, to help us reach 1,000 membership, on YouTube, as well as 1 million, because this is a continental agenda, and African is about 2 billion people now. So reaching at 1 million members in ACUP is very simple. It just needs you to take action, as I'm taking action now, so that together we can bring the masses of African people to this revolutionary agenda and make sure that the Africa we hand over to our children is no longer Africa of slaves, of servants of the Western development or economy, but Africa of people who are in charge and in driving seat of their own reality. So if you have 2 shoes, please sell one and buy a sword. If you have 2 trousers, please sell one and buy a sword, because now it is time for revolution. And this revolution is no longer on the streets. This revolution is not about burning cars, but this revolution is about selling cars, building cars and selling them. Mostly is in the mind, because if our mind is not under our control, our bodies will be the tools that our oppressor will use to enslave us and enslave our people. Thank you very much for your attention. See you next time. Peace and power.